Today we can definitively say that the Gaddafi regime has come to an end.
The world is a better place with Gaddafi gone.
Welcome to Tuko, the space where we slow things down, strip away propaganda, and unpack the full story behind the headlines. I am your host Alpha, and today's episode we dive deep into one of the most misunderstood and controversial figure of the 20th and 21st century. A man praised by millions, condemned by powerful nations, and violently removed from power. This is the true story of Muammar Gaddafi. His rise, his rule, his mistakes, his enemies, why he was killed, and what Libya has become since his death. No slogans, no myth, just context, history, and facts. This is Tuko. Stay tuned.
Tuko.
To understand Gaddafi, you must first understand Libya before him. Before 1969, Libya was ruled by King Idris, a monarch backed by Western power after Italian colonial rule. Libya had oil, massive oil reserve, yet most Libya live in poverty. Foreign oil companies control profits. US and British military bases operated freely. Illiteracy was widespread. Healthcare was limited. The state served elites, no citizens. For young Libyans, especially in the military, this felt like betrayal after independence. One of those young men was Muammar Gaddafi. Born in 1942, Gaddafi grew up poor, herding animals in the desert. He attended school under harsh conditions, often studying by candlelight. He admired leaders like Jamal Abdel Nasser of Egypt, who overthrew monarch and defied Western control. Gaddafi joined the military not for status but for revolution. At just 27 years old, in September 1969, while King Idris was abroad, Gaddafi and fellow officers staged a bloodless coup. No mass killing, no chaos, no civil war. By sunrise, Libya had a new ruler. Once in power, Gaddafi moved fast. First, he expelled foreign military bases. Then, he nationalized Libya's oil. This single move changed everything. Oil money was redirected into 1. Free education, 2. Free health care, 3. House programs, 4. Infrastructure, and 5. Road, hospitals, and universities. Libya's literacy rate skyrocketed. Life expectancy increased. Libya became one of the most developed countries in Africa. Women gained access to education and work. The state subsidies food, fuel, and electricity. For ordinary Libyans, life improved dramatically. Gaddafi rejected Western democracy and communism. He introduced his political philosophy in the Green Book promoting 1. Direct democracy, 2. People's committees, and 3. Political parties. In theory, citizens ruled themselves. In practice, Gaddafi held ultimate authority. This contradiction defined his rule. 1. Revolutionaries idea, and 2. Centralized power. He didn't call himself president. He ruled without a formal title, but with absolute influence. As years passed, dissent increased. Opposition was not tolerated. 1. Critics were jailed. 2. Some disappeared. And 3. Exiled dissidents were hunted. Media was state-controlled. election did not exist. But internationally, Gaddafi funded rebel movements, some of which used violence. This earned Libya sanction and isolation, especially in the 1980s and 1990s. Libya was bombed by the US in 1986. Sanctions crippled the economy. Yet, Gaddafi never collapsed. He survived isolation, pressure, and assassination attempt. In later years, Gaddafi turned strongly toward Africa. He funded African Union programs. He forgave African debts. He invested in telecoms, bank, and airlines, and he pushed for African unity. His most controversial proposal, a gold-backed African currency. This would change the US dollar, the euro, the French-controlled CFA franc. For Western financial systems, this was unacceptable. From this point, Gaddafi was no longer just a dictator. He was a strategic threat. In early 2011, protests spread across North Africa. In Libya, protests escalated quickly into armed conflict. The government responded brutally. Rebels formed militias. Civil war erupted. Western media framed Gaddafi as preparing a massacre. NATO intervened under the banner of humanitarian protection. But the mission changed. NATO bombed 1. Military targets, 2. Infrastructures, and 3. Government positions. Rebels advanced under NATO air cover. This was no longer protection, it was regime change. On October 20, 2011, Gaddafi attempted to flee set. His convoy was bombed by NATO aircraft. He was captured alive. Video shows beatings, humiliation, and chaos. Minutes later, he was dead. No trial, no court, no international process. A leader who ruled for 42 years was executed on the roadside. So, after his death, the state collapsed. Militia fought for power. Two rival governments emerged, and border dissolved. Libya became a weapon hub, a trafficking route, and a failed state. Open slave markets shocked the world. Oil wealth remained, but stability vanished. This was not liberation, this was state destruction. Gaddafi was not innocent. He ruled harshly. He silenced opposition. But removing him without a plan destroyed Libya. His story forces an uncomfortable question. 1. Who control narratives? 2. Who benefit from collapse? And 3. Is intervention ever truly humanitarian? History will debate Gaddafi for a generation, but Libya today stands as consequences of his removal. Muammar Gaddafi's story is not simple, and anyone who tells it's simple is lying. This was the rise of a revolutionary, the rule of authoritarian, and the fall of a state with no replacement. This has been Tuko, where we unpack the full story, not just the loudest one. If this episode gave you perspective, like, subscribe, and share. More deep factual stories are coming. Until next time, keep your radar on. My name is Alpha. One love. Peace.